The sound of boot-meeting ribs echoes through the gymnasium like a gunshot in a cathedral. "Get up, recruit!" Sergeant Derek Hawthorne's voice booms across the training facility at Fort Shadowmere, his face twisted into the kind of sneer that speaks of 20 years spent breaking down anyone who dares step into his domain. "You think this is some kind of game?" The woman on the mat doesn't cry out, doesn't whimper. She simply rolls to her side, pushes herself up with movements that are too controlled, too measured for someone who just took a combat boot to the stomach. Her name tag reads El Rivera, and everything about her screams fresh meat. Small frame, maybe 5'4" in boots, dark hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail that's already coming loose from the training session Hawthorne has been putting her through for the past hour. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Around the edges of the gymnasium, 24 other recruits watch in uncomfortable silence. This isn't training anymore. This is something else entirely, something that makes the air thick with tension and unspoken questions about where the line between instruction and abuse gets drawn. "I said get up!" Hawthorne circles her like a predator, his massive frame casting shadows across the worn blue mats. He's built like a brick wall with arms, the kind of drill instructor who's made a career out of being the nightmare that haunts every recruit's sleep. His chest is covered with ribbons and commendations that tell stories of deployments most people only see in movies. But right now, those credentials serve one purpose: justifying whatever he decides to do to the quiet woman struggling to her feet. Rivera stands, brushes dust from her training uniform, and assumes the ready position again. No complaints, no protests, just that same calm expression she's worn since walking into this gymnasium 3 hours ago, when she was assigned to remedial combat training for reasons nobody bothered explaining to her. "You know what your problem is?" Hawthorne steps closer, close enough that his aftershave mingles with the smell of sweat and industrial floor cleaner. "You think because you passed some basic training somewhere, you belong here. You think that little piece of paper in your file makes you a soldier." She doesn't respond, doesn't take the bait. Her breathing remains steady, controlled, following a pattern that seems almost automatic. 4 counts in, hold. 4 counts out, hold. The kind of breathing they teach in very specific places to very specific people. But Hawthorne doesn't know that. All he sees is a small woman who's been placed in his program, disrupting his carefully ordered world of large men with loud voices and simple solutions. Fort Shadowmere isn't some community college, sweetheart. He begins pacing again, playing to his audience of watching recruits. This is where real soldiers get made, where we separate the warriors from the wannabes. And right now, looking at you, I'm seeing a lot more wannabe than warrior. The gymnasium at Fort Shadowmere has seen this scene played out 1,000 times over the decades. Built in the 1960s, when the military had different ideas about training and different standards for who belonged where, it's a cavernous space with high windows that let in harsh afternoon light and cast long shadows across equipment that's been broken and rebuilt more times than anyone can count. Today, those shadows seem to emphasize the isolation of the woman standing alone in the center of the mat, while everyone else maintains their careful distance. Rivera's file, sitting on Hawthorne's desk in the corner office, tells a frustratingly simple story. Transfer from an undisclosed previous posting. Exemplary marks in all areas except one notable gap. No record of advanced combat training. No specialized qualifications. No explanation for why someone with such limited credentials would be assigned to an elite facility like Shadowmere, where most recruits arrive with years of experience and commendations. that fill multiple pages. That gap in her record bothers Hawthorne more than he'd admit. In his experience, people assigned to his program fall into two categories: those who've earned their place through blood and dedication, and those who've been sent here because someone somewhere pulled strings. Rivera clearly doesn't fit the first category, which means she represents everything he hates about modern military politics. Maybe you're used to participation trophies, he continues, warming to his theme. Maybe wherever you came from, they told you that trying hard was enough. But here's the thing about real combat, Princess. The enemy doesn't care about your feelings. They don't care if you're having a bad day. They care about putting you in the ground as quickly and efficiently as possible. To emphasize his point, he launches another kick, this one aimed at her midsection with enough force to drop most recruits. But something happens that makes the entire gymnasium go silent. Rivera moves, not away from the kick, but into it, her body shifting with the kind of fluid precision that turns Hawthorne's powerful attack into empty air. She doesn't counterattack, doesn't escalate, just redirects his momentum and steps back into position like nothing happened. The watching recruits exchange glances. That wasn't luck. That wasn't beginner's instinct. That was something else entirely. Hawthorne's face darkens. Being made to look foolish in front of his recruits isn't just embarrassing, it's unacceptable. His authority depends on absolute dominance, on being the biggest, strongest, most skilled person in any room he enters. Having some transfer student make him miss an attack he's thrown successfully thousands of times challenges everything he's built his identity around. Cute trick, he growls, but there's uncertainty in his voice now. Let's see how cute you think it is when I stop going easy on you. Rivera meets his eyes for the first time since entering the gymnasium. When she speaks, her voice is quiet, level, each word measured like she's calculating the exact amount of force needed to achieve a specific result. Sergeant Hawthorne, with all due respect, you might want to reconsider your approach. The words hang in the air like a challenge, issued in a language everyone understands but nobody wants to translate. Around the edges of the gymnasium, recruits who were trying to stay invisible suddenly find themselves leaning forward, sensing that whatever's about to happen will be worth remembering. Hawthorne's laugh is harsh, bitter, the sound of a man who's been questioned by someone he considers beneath consideration. Oh, really? And why's that, recruit? Rivera's expression doesn't change. Her posture remains relaxed but ready. Her breathing continues in that steady four-count pattern. But something shifts in her eyes, something that suggests depths nobody in this gymnasium has even begun to fathom. Because, she says with the kind of calm that comes from absolute confidence, I'm a Navy SEAL. The silence that follows Rivera's declaration stretches like a taut wire ready to snap. Then Sergeant Hawthorne throws his head back and erupts into the kind of laughter that echoes off gymnasium walls and settles into every corner where shadows gather. It's not just amusement, it's the deep, belly-shaking mirth of a man who's just heard the funniest joke of his military career. A Navy SEAL. He slaps his thigh, wiping tears from his eyes. Did you hear that, boys? Little Miss Transfer here thinks she's one of America's elite warriors. His voice carries across the gymnasium, bouncing off concrete walls and metal equipment racks. Next thing you know, she'll be telling us she's a Green Beret or maybe a Delta Force operator. The recruits shift uncomfortably, uncertain whether they're supposed to laugh along. Most of them keep their eyes down, studying the worn blue mats with sudden fascination. They've learned that when Sergeant Hawthorne finds something funny, it usually means someone else is about to have a very bad day. Private Tommy Castellanos, barely 19 and 3 weeks into the program, risks a glance upward. He's seen enough of Hawthorne's training methods to know that contradicting the sergeant, even jokingly, is a fast track to extra duty, kitchen patrol, and the kind of creative punishment that doesn't technically violate regulations, but makes you question every life choice that brought you to this moment. Ma'am, Hawthorne's voice drips with exaggerated respect, the kind that makes the word sound like an insult. With all due respect, the Navy SEALs don't take charity cases. They don't lower their standards for diversity initiatives. And they sure as hell don't graduate anyone who can't even handle a basic combat drill without getting winded. Rivera remains motionless in the center of the mat. Her uniform is regulation perfect despite the hour of training she's endured. No visible sweat, no signs of fatigue, breathing still following that steady 4-count pattern that none of the watching recruits recognize, but all of them notice. There's something about her stillness that doesn't fit the narrative Hawthorne is constructing, something that makes a few of the more observant soldiers frown and look closer. Corporal Maria Santos, stationed near the equipment lockers, has been watching this entire exchange with growing unease. She's been at Fort Shadowmere for 8 months, long enough to see Hawthorne break down recruits who came in thinking they were tough, long enough to recognize the signs of someone who's in over their head. But Rivera isn't showing any of those signs. No trembling hands, no rapid breathing, no defensive posturing. If anything, she looks patient. Let me guess, Hawthorne continues his performance, circling Rivera like a shark that's detected blood in the water. You took some weekend warrior course at the local community college, maybe a self-defense class at the Y, and now you think that makes you qualified to run with the big dogs. He stops directly in front of her, using his 6'3" frame to cast a shadow across her smaller form. The intimidation tactic has worked on countless recruits over the years. Most people instinctively step back when someone Hawthorne's size invades their personal space. Most people's breathing becomes shallow, their muscles tense with fight-or-flight responses. Rivera doesn't move. You know what I think? Hawthorne's voice drops to a theatrical whisper that somehow carries to every corner of the gymnasium. I think somebody made a mistake. I think your paperwork got mixed up with someone who actually belongs here. Because looking at you, all I see is another civilian playing dress-up. Behind him, Sergeant First Class Miguel Rodriguez enters through the rear doors, carrying a clipboard and wearing the tired expression of someone who's spent the morning dealing with administrative headaches. Rodriguez has been Hawthorne's assistant for 2 years, long enough to read the room instantly. He sees the crowd of recruits, sees Rivera isolated on the mat, sees Hawthorne in full performance mode, and knows exactly what's happening. Problem here, Sergeant. Rodriguez's voice cuts through Hawthorne's monologue. No problem, Rodriguez. Just helping our new transfer understand the reality of her situation. Hawthorne doesn't turn around, keeping his attention focused on Rivera. She seems to have some interesting ideas about her qualifications. Rodriguez glances at his clipboard, flips through several pages, stops at one that makes him pause. His expression shifts almost imperceptibly, a micro-expression that might indicate confusion or concern or recognition. Whatever he's reading doesn't seem to match what he's seeing in the gymnasium. Her file's pretty thin, Rodriguez says carefully. Most of it's classified above our clearance level. Classified, Hawthorne snorts. Right. I'm sure her weekend warrior certification is a matter of national security. He turns back to Rivera, who hasn't moved or spoken since her initial declaration. Tell you what, SEAL, since you're so confident in your abilities, let's make this interesting. You and me, full contact sparring. When I put you on your back in under 30 seconds, maybe you'll develop a more realistic assessment of your capabilities. The challenge hangs in the air like a gauntlet thrown down in a medieval court. Around the gymnasium, recruits exchange nervous glances. They've seen Hawthorne spar before. They've watched him systematically dismantle soldiers with years of experience, watched him use his size and strength and 2 decades of military training to prove points about hierarchy and respect, and knowing your place in the food chain. Rivera tilts her head slightly, as if considering the offer from multiple angles. When she speaks, her voice maintains that same level tone, like she's discussing the weather or commenting on the gymnasium's ventilation system. "Sergeant, I don't think that would be appropriate." "Appropriate?" Hawthorne's face reddens. "What's not appropriate is a recruit thinking she can waltz into my facility and claim credentials she hasn't earned. What's not appropriate is someone lying about their service record to avoid the training that everyone else has to complete. I'm not lying about anything." "Then prove it." He spreads his arms wide, addressing the entire room. "Show all these fine soldiers what a real Navy SEAL can do, unless, of course, you're afraid that your community college karate won't hold up under real pressure." Rodriguez takes a step forward, clipboard forgotten. Something about this situation is setting off alarm bells. Professional instincts developed through years of military service. But he's not sure what to do with those instincts. Hawthorne outranks him, and questioning a superior's judgment in front of recruits isn't the kind of career move that leads to positive performance evaluations. Rivera looks around the gymnasium slowly, taking in the faces of the watching soldiers, cataloging their expressions, their postures, their levels of attention. Some look excited at the prospect of entertainment. Some look uncomfortable with the escalating tension. A few, the observant ones, look concerned about something they can't quite articulate. Private Castellanos finds himself holding his breath. He doesn't know why, but something about this moment feels significant in a way that extends beyond typical drill instructor theatrics. Something about the woman in the center of the mat suggests depths that nobody in this room has begun to explore. "Sergeant Hawthorne," Rivera says finally, "I'll accept your challenge on one condition." "You're not in a position to make conditions, recruit. When this is over, when you understand who I am and what I represent, you'll recommend me for immediate advancement to the next phase of training. No delays, no additional harassment, no attempts to manufacture failures to justify your initial assessment." Hawthorne's grin is predatory. "Deal. And when I put you down, you'll admit in front of everyone here that you lied about your qualifications, and you'll accept reassignment to a program more suited to your actual abilities." "Understood." They move to the center of the largest mat, Rodriguez automatically assuming the role of referee despite his growing reservations. The recruits form a loose circle, some standing on benches and equipment to get better views. The afternoon light streaming through high windows creates dramatic shadows that seem to emphasize the disparity in size between the combatants. Hawthorne bounces on his toes, loosening his shoulders, running through a mental catalog of techniques that have never failed him. He's fought bigger opponents, faster opponents, more experienced opponents. But he's never lost to someone who looked like they belonged in a college library instead of a combat zone. Rivera stands perfectly still, hands at her sides, breathing in that same steady rhythm. She looks small under the gymnasium's harsh lights, almost fragile compared to Hawthorne's imposing presence. Several recruits later swear they saw her lips move slightly, as if she was counting something or whispering a prayer. Rodriguez raises his hand. Combat rules. First to surrender or inability to continue. Ready. Both fighters nod. Begin. Hawthorne launches forward like a freight train, all power and momentum, his right fist cutting through the air toward Rivera's head, with enough force to end the fight before it truly begins. It's a signature move, one that's dropped dozens of cocky recruits who thought they could challenge his authority. The technique is simple, effective, and backed by 240 pounds of muscle and bone. Rivera moves like water, not away from the punch, but around it, her body shifting with a fluidity that seems to defy basic physics. Hawthorne's fist passes through empty space where her head had been a microsecond earlier, his momentum carrying him past her in a way that leaves him momentarily off balance. The movement is so subtle, so economical, that half the watching recruits aren't even sure what happened. Private Castellanos blinks hard, certain he missed something crucial. One moment Hawthorne was throwing a devastating right cross. The next he was stumbling forward while Rivera stood exactly where she'd started, hands still at her sides, breathing still perfectly controlled. Rodriguez's grip tightens on his clipboard. He's seen thousands of sparring matches, officiated hundreds of them, and something about what just happened doesn't compute. Elite fighters don't move like that. Hell, most elite fighters can't move like that. The kind of spatial awareness and timing required to slip a punch that clean, that effortlessly, takes years of training under conditions most soldiers never experience. Hawthorne recovers quickly, his professional pride stung but his confidence intact. Missing one punch doesn't mean anything. Everyone gets lucky sometimes. He circles left, feinting with his shoulder, watching for tells in Rivera's posture that will telegraph her intentions. She gives him nothing. No defensive stance, no raised hands, no shifting weight that might indicate preparation for counterattack or evasion. Cute party trick, he growls, launching a combination this time, left jab to set up distance, right cross to the body, left hook to the head. It's textbook boxing, the kind of sequence that's been ending fights since before Hawthorne was born. 3 punches thrown with precision and power, designed to overwhelm an opponent's defensive capabilities. Rivera flows between them like smoke through a screen door. The first punch finds only air. The second whistles past ribs that are no longer there. The third connects with nothing but the growing frustration of a man who's beginning to realize he's fighting something he doesn't understand. Each miss is more complete than the last, more impossible to explain through conventional martial arts theory. Corporal Santos finds herself leaning forward, her maintenance duties forgotten as she watches something that shouldn't be possible unfold on the gymnasium mat. She's trained in 3 different fighting systems, spent 2 years studying combat applications at the Army's Advanced Warrior School. What she's witnessing doesn't fit any framework she's been taught. What the hell? The whisper comes from Specialist Derek Kim, a soldier who's been at Shadowmere long enough to see every type of fighter imaginable. He's watched former Marines, Army Rangers, even a few Air Force Special Tactics operators go through Hawthorne's program. None of them moved like Rivera is moving. None of them made Hawthorne look like an amateur, throwing punches in the dark. Rivera's breathing hasn't changed. 4 counts in, hold, 4 counts out, hold. The rhythm is hypnotic in its consistency, like she's performing meditation rather than engaging in combat. Her uniform remains crisp, unwrinkled, showing no signs of exertion, despite the fact that she's been dodging increasingly desperate attacks for nearly 2 minutes. Hawthorne steps back, his own breathing becoming labored. Sweat beads on his forehead, not from physical exertion, but from the growing realization that he's encountering something outside his experience. 2 decades of military training, thousands of hours in combat zones, countless sparring matches against opponents of every size and skill level. None of it prepared him for someone who moves like physics doesn't apply to them. Stop playing games. His voice echoes through the gymnasium, tinged with frustration and something that might be the first whisper of genuine concern. Fight back! Rivera tilts her head slightly, as if considering his request from multiple angles. When she speaks, her voice carries the same level tone she's maintained throughout the encounter, like she's discussing weekend plans rather than responding to a combat challenge. Sergeant, I told you this wasn't appropriate. What's not appropriate is making me look like a fool in front of my soldiers. I'm not making you do anything." The truth of that statement lands like a physical blow. Rivera hasn't thrown a single strike, hasn't made any aggressive moves, hasn't done anything except exist in spaces where Hawthorne's attacks aren't landing. She's not fighting him. She's simply not being where he expects her to be when he expects her to be there. Rodriguez catches movement in his peripheral vision and glances toward the gymnasium's main entrance. A figure in dress uniform stands in the doorway, watching the sparring match with an expression that's difficult to read. The newcomer is tall, lean, wearing the kind of ribbons and insignia that indicate extensive special operations experience. Rodriguez doesn't recognize him, but something about his presence makes the back of his neck itch with unidentified anxiety. Hawthorne launches himself forward again, this time abandoning technique in favor of raw aggression. If skill isn't working, maybe overwhelming force will. He throws everything he has, punches, elbows, even a desperate knee strike designed to catch Rivera if she tries to slip away again. She doesn't slip away. She moves through his attacks like they're happening in slow motion, each evasion so perfectly timed that Hawthorne's own momentum works against him. His knee strike carries him past her center line. His follow-up elbow finds empty air. His desperate right cross spins him completely around, leaving him facing the wrong direction, while Rivera stands calmly behind him, hands still at her sides, still breathing in that maddeningly consistent rhythm. The watching recruits have gone completely silent. This isn't sparring anymore. This isn't even a fight in any conventional sense. It's something else entirely, something that makes them question fundamental assumptions about how combat works, how training translates to real-world application, how someone who looks like a college student can make a career soldier appear clumsy and predictable. Private Castellanos finds himself thinking about a nature documentary he saw once, something about predators and prey. The way Rivera moves reminds him of footage showing a big cat hunting, economical, patient, conserving energy, while the prey exhausts itself through panic and wasted motion. Except in this scenario, the predator looks like someone's younger sister, and the prey is a 240-pound drill instructor with enough combat experience to fill a small library. "Enough!" Hawthorne spins to face her, his face red with exertion and mounting humiliation. "If you won't fight, then this is over. You lose by default." "That wasn't our agreement. The agreement was to prove your claims. All you've proven is that you're good at running away." Rivera's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in her posture. It's subtle, a slight adjustment in her stance, a barely perceptible change in the angle of her shoulders. To most of the watching soldiers, it means nothing, but Rodriguez feels his breath catch in his throat, and the figure in dress uniform pushes away from the doorframe, suddenly alert. "I haven't been running away, Sergeant. I've been giving you opportunities to reconsider." "Well, I'm done reconsidering. Time to end this charade." He charges forward one final time, putting everything he has behind a right cross that could stop a charging bull. All his weight, all his strength, all his accumulated frustration channeled into a single devastating punch, aimed at Rivera's center mass. This time, she doesn't slip away. This time, she steps forward to meet him, her movements suddenly sharp, precise, aggressive. Her right hand moves in a motion too fast for most eyes to follow, connecting with Hawthorne's extended arm at exactly the right angle, with exactly the right amount of force. The sound that echoes through the gymnasium isn't the solid thud of fist meeting flesh. It's something else entirely, a wet, organic crack that makes several recruits wince and look away. Hawthorne's forward momentum continues for another half-second before his brain processes what just happened to his elbow joint. Then he screams. The figure in dress uniform steps fully into the gymnasium, his boots clicking against the polished floor with mechanical precision. His face carries the kind of expression that suggests he's seen this exact scenario play out before in other gymnasiums, on other bases, with other drill instructors who made the mistake of challenging someone they didn't understand. Rodriguez drops his clipboard entirely, no longer concerned with maintaining the pretense of officiating a sparring match. What he just witnessed wasn't sparring, it wasn't even fighting in any conventional sense. It was a demonstration of capability so far beyond normal parameters that it required a complete reevaluation of everything he thought he knew about the woman standing calmly over Sergeant Hawthorne's writhing form. Rivera looks down at the injured man with something that might be sympathy or might be professional assessment. When she speaks, her voice carries a note of genuine regret. "I tried to warn you, Sergeant. Some people aren't meant to be underestimated." Hawthorne's screams echo off the gymnasium walls like a siren, high-pitched and desperate, the kind of sound that makes hardened soldiers uncomfortable because it reminds them that pain is universal and anatomy is fragile. He cradles his right arm against his chest, the elbow bent at an angle that makes several recruits look away and swallow hard against rising nausea. Rivera steps back 2 precise paces, creating distance while maintaining visual contact with the injured sergeant. Her expression shows neither satisfaction nor remorse, just the clinical assessment of someone evaluating the effectiveness of a technique she's performed countless times under vastly different circumstances. "Medical!" Rodriguez's voice cuts through the chaos as he drops to his knees beside Hawthorne. "I need a medic in the gymnasium now." His hands hover over the injured man, afraid to touch anything that might worsen the damage. The arm hangs wrong, twisted in a way that suggests multiple fractures and significant soft tissue trauma. The figure in dress uniform moves closer, his boots clicking against the floor with mechanical precision. Up close, his insignia becomes visible: Colonel's eagles, airborne wings, special forces tabs, and ribbons that tell stories of deployments to places that don't appear on most maps. His name tag reads Westfield, and his eyes carry the kind of weight that comes from making decisions where lives hang in the balance. "Clear the gymnasium." Colonel Westfield's voice carries absolute authority. "Everyone except medical personnel and essential witnesses out, now." The recruits hesitate for a moment, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. Private Castellanos takes one last look at Rivera, who stands motionless in the center of the mat like she's waiting for the next phase of some predetermined sequence. Then survival instinct kicks in, and the entire group files toward the exits with the kind of orderly haste that military training breeds into people's bones. Corporal Santos lingers near the equipment lockers, ostensibly securing gear, but actually straining to overhear whatever conversation is about to unfold. She's seen enough military politics to recognize a situation that's about to become classified at levels far above her clearance, and professional curiosity wars with the wisdom of maintaining plausible deniability. Rodriguez, Westfield's attention shifts to the kneeling sergeant. "What's your assessment of the situation?" "Sir, Rodriguez glances between Rivera and the writhing Hawthorne, searching for words that might explain something that shouldn't be possible. Sergeant Hawthorne initiated a sparring match with the recruit. She defended herself. His elbow appears to be severely damaged. Multiple fractures, possible nerve damage based on the angle of displacement." Defended herself. Westfield's tone suggests he's heard this particular euphemism before and found it inadequate. "Sergeant, I've reviewed the medical records of 17 drill instructors who thought they were dealing with routine training situations. 12 required surgery, 3 had to be medically retired, 2 needed reconstructive procedures that took 18 months to complete. The implications hang in the air like smoke from an explosion. Rodriguez processes the numbers, runs quick calculations, arrives at conclusions that make his mouth go dry. 17 drill instructors, multiple bases, a pattern of incidents that suggests this isn't Rivera's first encounter with authority figures who underestimated her capabilities. Medical personnel burst through the gymnasium doors, 2 Navy corpsmen carrying trauma bags and a portable stretcher. They take one look at Hawthorne's condition and immediately begin establishing IV access while immobilizing his arm with materials designed for battlefield stabilization. Jesus Christ, the senior corpsman mutters under his breath as he examines the injury. What hit him? A sledgehammer? Rivera finally speaks, her voice maintaining that same level tone despite the chaos surrounding her. 2-inch pressure point strike to the ulnar nerve cluster, followed by hyperextension of the joint beyond structural limitations. Standard defensive technique for neutralizing aggression without permanent disability. The corpsman looks up sharply, his eyes narrowing as he processes terminology that sounds more like medical textbook language than casual description. Ma'am, are you medical personnel? Among other things. Westfield moves closer to Rivera, studying her face with the kind of intensity that suggests he's comparing what he sees to photographs or personnel files stored in classified databases. When he speaks, his voice drops to a register that doesn't carry beyond their immediate vicinity. Commander Rivera, I believe we need to have a conversation about your current operational status. The words land like grenades in the suddenly quiet gymnasium. Rodriguez's head snaps up from his position beside Hawthorne. Santos freezes completely, her equipment maintenance forgotten as she processes a rank designation that places Rivera significantly higher in the command structure than anyone initially realized. Commander, not recruit, not trainee, not transfer student. Commander, an officer rank that requires years of service, multiple deployments and leadership experience that goes far beyond basic military training. Commander Rivera, whose personnel file was mostly classified, above Rodriguez's clearance level, whose presence at Fort Shadowmere suddenly makes sense in ways that are simultaneously reassuring and terrifying. Sir, Rivera responds, and the subtle shift in her posture indicates recognition of Westfield's authority while maintaining her own command presence. My current assignment parameters remain classified, but I believe recent events may have compromised my operational security. That's an understatement. Westfield glances at the medical team working on Hawthorne, then back to Rivera. How many people witnessed the incident? Approximately 24 recruits, Sergeant Rodriguez, Corporal Santos, and yourself, plus whoever might be monitoring gymnasium surveillance feeds. Rodriguez struggles to process information that rewrites everything he thought he understood about the past 4 hours. Commander Rivera has been operating undercover, assigned to Fort Shadowmere for reasons that required maintaining false credentials and enduring treatment that would normally constitute harassment of a superior officer. The implications suggest operations at classification levels that make his head spin. Santos, Westfield's voice cuts across the gymnasium. Front and center. Santos abandons any pretense of equipment maintenance and approaches with the careful precision of someone who realizes they're walking into a situation that could define the rest of their military career. Yes, sir. What's your security clearance level? Secret, sir. Working on top secret upgrade pending background investigation completion. Your assessment of what occurred here today? Santos looks between Westfield and Rivera, calculating how much truth is safe to speak in this particular moment. Sir, I observed a sparring match between Sergeant Hawthorne and the individual I knew as Recruit Rivera. The sergeant sustained what appears to be serious injuries during the engagement. Your professional opinion of Rivera's capabilities? Sir, her movement patterns and technique suggest training significantly above standard military combat instruction. The precision and efficiency of her defensive actions indicate specialized education in advanced martial systems. Westfield nods slowly, apparently satisfied with Santos's careful assessment. You're being reassigned, effective immediately, to classified operations support. Rodriguez, same assignment. Both of you will report to my office at 800 tomorrow for briefings that will require signing non-disclosure agreements with enforcement provisions that include federal prison time. The medical team finishes stabilizing Hawthorne and begins transferring him to the stretcher. As they lift him, he regains enough consciousness to focus on Rivera through pain-clouded eyes. When he speaks, his voice is thick with medication and the kind of confusion that comes from having fundamental assumptions about reality violently readjusted. Who are you really? Rivera looks down at him with something that might be sympathy mixed with professional assessment. Someone you should have listened to, Sergeant. Rest well. Physical therapy will take approximately 6 months if you follow medical recommendations. They wheel him out, leaving the gymnasium eerily quiet except for the hum of ventilation systems and the distant sounds of normal base operations continuing outside. Rivera stands in the center of the mat exactly where the confrontation occurred, hands at her sides, breathing in that same steady 4-count rhythm that nobody initially recognized but everyone now understands, indicates training at levels most soldiers never experience. Westfield checks his watch, a movement that suggests schedules and timelines that extend far beyond this particular incident. Commander, we have approximately 30 minutes before news of this incident reaches command levels that will require detailed explanations. I suggest we use that time productively. Understood, sir. What are my new operational parameters? That depends entirely on how well you can convince me that your cover isn't completely blown and this assignment can continue as originally planned. Rivera's slight smile suggests she's been preparing for this conversation since the moment she accepted Hawthorne's challenge. Sir, with respect, I believe recent events may have actually strengthened my operational position. Nothing builds credibility like demonstrating capability under pressure. The gymnasium settles into an expectant silence as 2 senior officers prepare to discuss classified operations in terms that Rodriguez and Santos probably shouldn't hear but definitely need to understand if they're going to be effective in their new assignments. Outside, Fort Shadowmere continues its daily routines, unaware that everything just changed in ways that will reshape how advanced training programs identify and handle personnel, with backgrounds that exist in the shadows between official records and classified necessity. Westfield's office occupies the corner of Building 7, a utilitarian concrete structure that houses Fort Shadowmere's administrative operations behind reinforced walls and triple-layer security protocols. The space reflects its occupants' priorities: functional furniture arranged for efficiency, maps covering 3 walls showing global operational theaters, and a secure communications terminal that connects directly to Pentagon command centers most officers never see. Rivera sits across from Westfield's desk in a standard-issue chair, her posture maintaining the relaxed alertness that's become her signature throughout this assignment. The past 30 minutes have transformed her from apparent recruit to confirmed naval officer, but the transition seems as natural as changing uniforms. No dramatic revelation, no sudden personality shift, just the removal of a carefully maintained facade. Your file makes for interesting reading. Westfield opens a manila folder marked with classification stamps that indicate contents requiring specialized handling. Naval Academy graduate, class of 2018. top 5% academically, exceptional marks in advanced tactics and psychological operations, SEAL training completion in record time, followed by immediate assignment to Task Force Neptune. Rodriguez and Santos occupy chairs positioned slightly behind Rivera, their expressions showing the careful blankness that soldiers develop when exposed to information above their clearance levels. Both understand they're witnessing classified briefings that could reshape their understanding of military operations, assuming they're allowed to retain this knowledge after leaving Westfield's office. Task Force Neptune officially doesn't exist, Westfield continues, his eyes scanning documents that contain redacted sections spanning entire paragraphs. But unofficially, it handles situations where conventional military responses prove inadequate: deep cover infiltration, institutional corruption investigation, operational security verification in high-risk environments. Rivera's expression doesn't change, but something in her posture suggests this briefing serves purposes beyond information sharing. Westfield isn't revealing her background for the benefit of Rodriguez and Santos. He's establishing operational context for whatever comes next, building framework for decisions that will affect multiple careers and possibly multiple lives. Your assignment to Fort Shadowmere came through channels that require presidential authorization. Westfield turns a page, revealing photographs that show faces Rodriguez doesn't recognize but suspects he should. 3 months ago, intelligence indicated systematic compromise of advanced training protocols across 6 facilities, classified techniques appearing in private military contractor operations, tactical innovations developed at government expense being sold to foreign interests. The scope of the investigation becomes clear through careful revelation. Rivera hasn't been playing recruit for 3 months as some kind of elaborate training exercise. She's been hunting traitors, following money trails, documenting evidence of corruption that reaches into the highest levels of military command structure. Her assignment required enduring harassment, maintaining false credentials, and accepting treatment that would constitute career suicide if applied to an officer of her actual rank. Santos shifts uncomfortably as implications cascade through her understanding. Every interaction with Rivera over the past 3 months needs reevaluation. Every moment of watching Hawthorne's treatment without intervention becomes complicity in operational necessity rather than simple bystander behavior. The weight of classified knowledge settles onto her shoulders like lead blankets. The investigation identified 17 potential security breaches across participating facilities. Westfield's voice maintains bureaucratic neutrality while describing betrayals that cost lives. Financial records indicate systematic transfer of classified information to Meridian Tactical Solutions, a private contractor with clients in 12 countries, including 3 designated as hostile to U.S. interests. Rodriguez processes timeline correlations that make his stomach clench. Meridian Tactical Solutions. He's heard that name in operational briefings, seen their personnel operating in conflict zones where American forces encountered unexpectedly sophisticated opposition. If they've been purchasing classified training methodologies, entire operations could have been compromised before they began. Commander Rivera's mission parameters included identifying the source of leaked information while maintaining operational security through deep cover protocols. Westfield closes the folder but doesn't set it aside. Recent events suggest those parameters may require adjustment. Sir, Rivera speaks for the first time since entering the office. My operational effectiveness hasn't been compromised. If anything, demonstrating capability under controlled circumstances enhances my credibility with potential targets. Explain. Hawthorne represented typical institutional resistance to outside oversight. His reaction to my presence, his need to establish dominance, his refusal to acknowledge alternative perspectives, all classic indicators of personnel who might be susceptible to corruption recruitment. By establishing my capabilities definitively, I've created opportunities for deeper investigation. Westfield's slight smile suggests he's heard this particular rationalization before and found it convincing. You're proposing to continue the assignment despite blown cover. I'm proposing that my cover has evolved rather than been blown. Instead of unqualified recruit requiring remedial training, I'm now demonstrated special operations personnel conducting advanced evaluation of facility security protocols. The shift actually provides access to personnel and information that weren't available under my original parameters. Rodriguez realizes he's witnessing something unprecedented in his military experience. Rivera isn't just adapting to changed circumstances, she's weaponizing them, transforming potential mission failure into operational advantage through psychological manipulation of institutional expectations. The demonstration with Hawthorne wasn't defensive necessity, it was strategic positioning. Your assessment of current security threats within the facility. Westfield's question carries weight that extends beyond routine inquiry. Rivera pulls a small tablet from her cargo pocket, its surface showing encrypted files that contain 3 months of accumulated intelligence. 17 personnel with access to classified training protocols have financial irregularities requiring investigation. 4 maintain personal relationships with individuals connected to Meridian Tactical Solutions. 2 have travel patterns that don't correlate with official duty assignments. The data represents hundreds of hours of observation, documentation, and analysis conducted while maintaining the facade of struggling recruit. Every interaction, every overheard conversation, every seemingly casual inquiry about training methodologies has contributed to building cases that could result in multiple courts-martial and potentially international diplomatic incidents. Recommendation for next phase operations? Continue current assignment with expanded access authorization. Use demonstrated special operations credentials to conduct official security reviews that provide legal justification for deeper investigation. Identify and neutralize the primary source of information leakage while building cases against secondary participants. Santos finds herself holding her breath as she processes the magnitude of ongoing operations. Rivera isn't just investigating Fort Shadowmere. She's conducting a systematic security audit that could expose corruption networks spanning multiple installations and potentially reaching into Pentagon command levels. The scope suggests implications that could reshape how military training protocols are developed and protected. Westfield's secure phone rings with the distinctive tone that indicates classified communication channels. He answers with crisp professionalism, listening to information that gradually changes his expression from neutral assessment to grim calculation. Understood. Maintain surveillance until further notice. He hangs up, his attention returning to Rivera with increased intensity. Commander, circumstances have accelerated our timeline. Meridian Tactical Solutions just submitted a bid for the Advanced Combat Training Contract at 3 additional facilities. The bid includes tactical specifications that suggest access to classified methodologies developed exclusively at Fort Shadowmere. The implications hit Rodriguez like physical impacts. Someone at this facility has been providing real-time intelligence to private contractors, enabling them to underbid government programs using techniques that taxpayers funded and military personnel developed through blood and sacrifice. The betrayal goes beyond simple corruption. It's institutional sabotage with national security implications. Sir, Rivera's voice maintains professional calm despite the escalating stakes. I need 48 hours to identify the primary source and secure evidence that will support prosecution. After that, we can coordinate facility-wide security reviews that will expose the entire network. You have 24 hours. After that, this operation moves to federal jurisdiction with resources and methods that won't require maintaining your current cover. Rivera nods once, accepting parameters that most officers would find impossible to meet. But Rodriguez is beginning to understand that Rivera isn't most officers. She's something else entirely, a weapon disguised as a person, deployed against enemies who made the fatal mistake of believing they understood what they were facing. Outside Westfield's office, Fort Shadowmere continues its routine operations while unknowingly hosting the final phase of an investigation that will determine whether American military training superiority remains American or whether it becomes another commodity sold to the highest bidder by people who swore oaths to protect what they're now betraying. The hunt is about to begin in earnest. The 24-hour countdown begins at 06:30 the following morning, when Rivera reports to Building 7's basement level, a subterranean complex that doesn't appear on any official Fort Shadowmere blueprints. The corridors here smell of recycled air and electronic equipment, lined with doors marked only by alphanumeric codes that provide no indication of their contents or purpose. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Rodriguez and Santos follow 2 steps behind, both carrying security badges that were issued at 0545, with temporary classifications that expire in precisely 24 hours. The badges grant access to areas they've worked above for months without knowing existed, creating the unsettling realization that Fort Shadowmere operates on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. Operational briefing room is Delta 7. Rivera's voice echoes slightly in the narrow hallway as she leads them past doors that emit subtle electronic humming. Her transformation from apparent recruit to operational commander seems complete. Posture, voice pattern, even her walking rhythm has shifted to match someone accustomed to making decisions that affect strategic outcomes. Delta 7 turns out to be a windowless conference room, dominated by wall-mounted displays showing surveillance feeds from every major facility area. The images cycle through mess halls, training areas, administrative offices, and dormitories in constant rotation, creating a kaleidoscope of base life viewed from angles most personnel never consider. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Hayes sits at the conference table's head, her uniform bearing insignia that Rodriguez recognizes from intelligence briefings but has never seen in person. Defense Intelligence Agency, with ribbons indicating deployments to operational theaters where conventional military units don't officially operate. Her presence transforms the room from meeting space to command center. Commander Rivera, bring us current on your investigation status. Hayes's voice carries the crisp authority of someone accustomed to receiving information that shapes national policy. Her eyes track the surveillance feeds while she speaks, processing multiple information streams with practiced efficiency. Rivera activates a wall display showing organizational charts, financial records, and communication intercepts, arranged in patterns that tell stories of systematic betrayal. Primary target identified as Major William Brennan, Facility Operations Officer. Secondary targets include Staff Sergeant Linda Morrison, Communications Specialist, and Civilian Contractor James Patterson, Systems Administrator. The names land like hammer blows in Rodriguez's consciousness. Major Brennan signs his duty rosters. Staff Sergeant Morrison handles encrypted communications he sends to higher headquarters. Patterson maintains computer systems that process classified training documentation. If they've been compromised, every aspect of Fort Shadowmere's security has been exposed to hostile intelligence gathering. Evidence basis? Hayes's question cuts straight to prosecutorial requirements. Brennan maintains financial accounts in 3 countries with deposits correlating to dates when classified protocols were accessed outside normal parameters. Morrison's personal communications include coded references to consulting fees and additional income streams that don't correlate with official military compensation. Patterson's system access logs show late-night file transfers to external servers registered to shell companies connected to Meridian Tactical Solutions. Santos stares at the evidence displays, watching 3 months of Rivera's investigation unfold in documentation that could destroy careers and result in decades of federal prison time. Every casual conversation, every shared meal, every moment of apparent normalcy has been cover for building cases that will reshape multiple lives and possibly international military cooperation agreements. Timeline for evidence completion? Hayes checks her watch, a gesture that suggests coordination with operations extending beyond Fort Shadowmere's boundaries. Brennan has scheduled maintenance review at 1400 that requires accessing classified systems from his personal terminal. Morrison handles weekly encrypted transmission to Pentagon at 1630. Patterson performs system backups every evening at 2100 that include transferring files to external storage. All 3 activities provide opportunities for documented evidence gathering. Rodriguez realizes he's witnessing the final phase of an operation that's been 3 months in development. Rivera hasn't just been investigating potential security breaches. She's been timing her evidence collection to coincide with maximum impact, ensuring that when arrests occur, the documentation will be overwhelming and irrefutable. Security considerations? Hayes's question indicates awareness of complications that extend beyond simple law enforcement. Brennan has personal relationships with 4 other facility personnel who may be compromised. Morrison's position requires replacement with someone who can maintain operational continuity without arousing suspicion among potential co-conspirators. Patterson's civilian contractor status complicates arrest procedures and may require coordination with federal agencies. The complexity grows with each revelation. This isn't a simple case of individual corruption. It's institutional compromise that may require facility-wide security reviews, personnel reassignments, and potentially congressional oversight of military training programs. The scope suggests implications that could affect defense policy at cabinet levels. Hayes activates a secure communication terminal that connects directly to Pentagon command centers. Homeplate, this is Oversight 7. Request immediate coordination with federal counterintelligence for civilian contractor arrest authorization. Also need DoD legal counsel for courts-martial, preparation and facility security review teams for post-operation assessment. The response comes through encrypted channels that sound like electronic static to unauthorized listeners, but apparently contain specific instructions for Hayes. Her expression hardens as she processes information that changes operational parameters in real time. Commander, circumstances have accelerated again. Meridian Tactical Solutions just received a contract award for advanced training protocols at 2 international military facilities. The contract specifications match classified methodologies developed exclusively here. We have approximately 8 hours before they begin implementation using stolen American tactical innovations. Rivera's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, the only visible reaction to learning that American military superiority is being sold to foreign governments by people who swore oaths to protect national secrets. Ma'am, I can compress the evidence-gathering timeline to 4 hours if we move to active surveillance rather than passive observation. Explain active surveillance. Instead of waiting for targets to perform routine activities, we create situations that force them to access compromised systems under controlled circumstances, apply pressure that compels them to contact their handlers or transfer information while we're positioned to document everything. Rodriguez feels his understanding of military operations undergo fundamental revision. Rivera isn't just investigating corruption, she's manipulating people into revealing themselves through psychological pressure that exploits their criminal activities. The sophistication suggests training in methods that most military personnel never encounter. Implementation plan. Rivera pulls up detailed facility schematics showing communication pathways, computer network architecture, and security camera coverage patterns. Santos and Rodriguez conduct routine security inspections that appear to threaten operational security. The inspections will be designed to make targets nervous about their activities while providing legal justification for monitoring their responses. Santos realizes she's being transformed from witness to operational asset, her temporary security clearance serving purposes that extend far beyond administrative convenience. Ma'am, what exactly will these inspections involve? You'll be reviewing access logs, questioning personnel about unusual activities, and generally creating the impression that security breaches are being investigated. The targets will interpret this as threat assessment and will likely contact their handlers or attempt to sanitize evidence, providing us with real-time documentation of criminal activity. Hayes checks multiple communication channels simultaneously, processing information from sources Rodriguez can't identify. Timeline approved. Begin active surveillance at 1200. Evidence compilation deadline is 1600. Federal arrest teams will be positioned at 1500 for immediate action upon evidence confirmation. The room falls silent except for electronic humming from surveillance equipment and secure communication terminals. Outside these walls, Fort Shadowmere continues routine operations while unknowingly hosting the conclusion of an investigation that began with presidential authorization and will end with arrests that may require international diplomatic coordination. Rivera stands, her transformation from recruit to operational commander now complete. Gentlemen, welcome to active intelligence operations. For the next 4 hours, everything you say and do serves national security purposes that extend far beyond this facility. Questions? Rodriguez and Santos exchange glances that acknowledge they've crossed into operational territory that will define the rest of their military careers. No questions seem adequate for circumstances that exceed their previous experience by orders of magnitude. The hunt enters its final phase, with precision timing that allows no margin for error and no opportunity for targets to escape through preparation or luck. At 1200 hours, Rodriguez approaches Major Brennan's office in Building 3 with a clipboard full of fabricated security review documentation and a stomach full of anxiety that threatens to compromise his professional demeanor. The hallway outside Brennan's door smells of coffee and copy machine toner, the mundane sense of administrative work that conceal the magnitude of criminal activity being investigated. Santos moves through the communications center 2 floors below, her temporary security badge granting access to classified systems while she conducts what appears to be routine inspection procedures. Her hands shake slightly as she reviews access logs that contain evidence of systematic betrayal, but her voice remains steady as she questions personnel about unusual activities and irregular file transfers. Rivera monitors both operations from a surveillance room that doesn't officially exist, watching multiple video feeds while coordinating with federal agents positioned around Fort Shadowmere's perimeter. Her earpiece crackles with status updates from teams that have been tracking Meridian Tactical Solutions personnel for weeks, waiting for evidence that will justify arrests and seizures that could prevent classified American tactics from reaching hostile foreign governments. Major Brennan, Rodriguez's voice carries through the office intercom with practiced authority. Security review team needs to discuss some irregularities in your system access patterns. Brennan's response comes after a pause that suggests rapid mental calculation. Certainly, Sergeant. Come in. Rodriguez enters to find Brennan behind his desk, fingers hovering over a keyboard that displays financial software rather than military systems. The screen shows account balances that don't correlate with Major's pay grade, numbers that suggest income, streams requiring explanation to federal investigators. Sir, we're conducting facility-wide reviews of classified system access following intelligence reports of potential security breaches. Rodriguez delivers his prepared script while noting Brennan's micro-expressions, the slight tightening around his eyes, the unconscious adjustment of his collar, the way his hands move away from the keyboard like it might burn him. Security breaches? Brennan's voice maintains professional calm, but sweat appears on his forehead despite the office's air conditioning. What kind of breaches are we talking about? Unauthorized external access to classified training protocols, sir. Possible data transfers to private contractors. We're reviewing all personnel with access to sensitive systems. Rodriguez consults his clipboard with deliberate theatricality, allowing Brennan to process the implications. 2 floors below, Santos approaches Staff Sergeant Morrison's communication workstation during what should be routine morning operations. Sergeant Morrison, I need to review your transmission logs from the past 6 months. We've received reports of possible communication intercepts. Morrison's hands freeze over her keyboard, her face cycling through expressions that suggest rapid consideration of multiple escape scenarios. Intercepts? Ma'am, all my transmissions follow standard encryption protocols. I'm sure they do. This is just verification for the security review. Santos pulls up a chair beside Morrison's workstation, positioning herself to observe both the screens and Morrison's reactions. Let's start with your evening transmissions from the past month. In the surveillance room, Rivera watches both conversations unfold while coordinating with Lieutenant Colonel Hayes and federal teams positioned around the facility. Each target's stress responses are being documented, their defensive behaviors cataloged, their communication patterns analyzed for evidence of criminal coordination. Home plate, this is Oversight 7. Rivera speaks into her secure communication terminal. Targets are responding to pressure as predicted. Brennan is showing signs of extreme stress. Morrison appears to be preparing defensive measures. Request authorization for Phase 2 pressure application. Hayes's response comes through encrypted channels. Authorization granted. Escalate pressure protocols. Federal teams are in position for immediate action. Rodriguez intensifies his questioning, pulling out documentation that appears to show specific evidence of Brennan's activities. Sir, these access logs show late-night system entries from your personal terminal, including downloads of classified tactical protocols. Can you explain the operational necessity for accessing this information outside normal duty hours? Brennan's facade begins cracking under sustained pressure. His breathing becomes shallow, his hands tremble slightly, and his eyes dart toward his personal cell. Phone with increasing frequency. Sergeant, those accesses were routine administrative reviews, part of my normal duties as operations officer. At 02:30 in the morning, sir? On weekends? During periods when you weren't officially on duty? Rodriguez presses forward with questions designed to eliminate rational explanations for suspicious activity. Santos employs similar tactics with Morrison, presenting evidence that appears to document unauthorized communication with external contacts. Sergeant, these transmission logs show encrypted messages sent to addresses that aren't in our authorized communication directory. The messages were sent during your regular duty hours, but weren't recorded in official communication logs. Morrison's composure deteriorates rapidly under sustained questioning. Ma'am, those transmissions were personal communications. I used official systems for convenience, but the content wasn't classified. Personal communications sent to addresses registered to private military contractors, personal messages that required encryption protocols normally reserved for operational traffic. Santos maintains professional demeanor while applying psychological pressure designed to force mistakes. Rivera observes both interrogations while monitoring communication intercepts that track external contact attempts. Home plate, Morrison is reaching for her personal phone. Brennan has activated encrypted messaging software on his computer. Both targets are preparing to contact external handlers. Hayes coordinates with federal teams positioned around Fort Shadowmere. All units prepare for immediate action. Targets are about to provide evidence of criminal conspiracy. Document all communications for prosecution purposes. Brennan's phone call connects to a number that federal investigators have been monitoring for weeks. We have a problem. Security is asking questions about the system access. They know about the late-night downloads. His voice carries panic that confirms 3 months of Rivera's investigation while providing real-time evidence of criminal activity. Morrison's encrypted message goes to an address traced to Meridian Tactical Solutions headquarters. Security review in progress. Possible compromise of communication protocols. Request immediate extraction guidance. The message provides documentary evidence of conspiracy while revealing the scope of institutional betrayal. Rivera coordinates arrest teams while documenting evidence that will support federal prosecution. All units move now. Primary targets are confirming criminal activity through real-time communications with hostile contacts. Secondary sweep teams begin facility-wide security review. Federal agents pour through Fort Shadowmere's main gates, with warrants authorizing searches and seizures that have been prepared for weeks. Their vehicles move with precision timing that reflects extensive coordination with military command structure and Department of Justice legal teams. Rodriguez maintains his position in Brennan's office, while armed federal agents enter through corridors that have been quietly secured by teams positioned throughout the building. Major Brennan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit espionage, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, and violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Santos coordinates with federal agents who arrest Morrison while she's still trying to delete incriminating files from her workstation. The deletion attempts provide additional evidence of criminal consciousness while confirming the scope of information that's been compromised through her activities. In the surveillance room, Rivera watches multiple arrests unfold simultaneously across Fort Shadowmere, while federal teams execute searches that will recover evidence spanning months of criminal activity. Computer systems are seized, financial records confiscated, personal belongings searched for additional evidence of conspiracy. Home plate, this is Oversight 7. Rivera reports to Hayes while coordinating with arrest teams. Primary targets in custody. Evidence documentation complete. Facility security review teams are conducting comprehensive assessment of potential additional compromises. Hayes coordinates with Pentagon command centers while federal prosecutors prepare cases that will require coordination with international law enforcement agencies. Outstanding work, Commander. Phase 3 operations will begin immediately to assess damage and implement security upgrades across all affected facilities. Outside Building 3, base personnel watch in confusion as federal agents escort Major Brennan to waiting vehicles while investigators carry sealed evidence containers from his office. The arrests mark the conclusion of an operation that began with presidential authorization and ends with prosecutions that may require congressional oversight. Rivera emerges from the surveillance room to find Rodriguez and Santos waiting with expressions that suggest complete revision of their understanding of military operations and their role in protecting national security interests that extend far beyond individual facility boundaries. The hunt has concluded successfully, but the implications will reshape how advanced military training protocols are developed, protected, and shared with international partners who may not deserve the trust they've been granted. The aftermath unfolds like a controlled explosion across Fort Shadowmere, with federal investigators transforming the facility into a crime scene that requires systematic documentation of 3 months' worth of institutional betrayal. Every office, every computer terminal, every classified document becomes potential evidence in prosecutions that will reshape how military intelligence operations are conducted and protected. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes coordinates with Pentagon officials while Rivera supervises the evidence collection process that will support cases requiring international cooperation agreements. The scope of criminal activity extends beyond simple document theft. Entire tactical methodologies developed through years of American military innovation have been systematically transferred to private contractors with clients in hostile nations. Rodriguez finds himself assigned to evidence documentation teams that work through the night cataloging seized materials. His temporary security clearance expanded to accommodate access to files that reveal the true magnitude of institutional compromise. Computer hard drives contain terabytes of classified tactical protocols, financial records show payments totaling millions of dollars, and communication intercepts reveal coordination between American military personnel and foreign intelligence services. Commander Rivera. Hayes approaches Rivera's position in the facility's main conference room, which has been converted into a coordination center for federal operations. Initial assessment indicates systematic compromise of advanced training protocols across 17 facilities over a 2-year period. Meridian Tactical Solutions has been packaging and selling American tactical innovations to 12 different international clients. Rivera reviews preliminary reports while coordinating with Defense Intelligence Agency analysts who are assessing the strategic implications of compromised military capabilities. Ma'am, the financial records indicate total revenue exceeding $47 million from the sale of classified protocols. The methodologies include advanced urban warfare techniques, specialized insertion procedures, and psychological operations frameworks that took decades to develop. Santos works with federal computer specialists who are recovering deleted files from seized systems, her technical training proving valuable in reconstructing evidence trails that criminal conspirators attempted to destroy. The recovery process reveals communication networks spanning multiple continents, with coordination mechanisms that suggest professional intelligence operations rather than simple criminal enterprise. The communication intercepts show coordination with intelligence services from at least 6 countries, Santos reports, while analyzing encrypted message traffic that federal teams have been monitoring for months. The transfers weren't random document sales. They were systematic intelligence operations designed to neutralize American tactical advantages through targeted acquisition of specific capabilities. The revelation transforms the investigation from criminal prosecution to national security crisis, requiring coordination with State Department officials and international law enforcement agencies. Rivera coordinates with federal teams while preparing briefings that will reach cabinet-level officials within hours of arrest completion. Patterson, the civilian contractor, provides the most damaging evidence during initial questioning by federal agents who offer reduced sentences in exchange for cooperation. His confession reveals systematic penetration of military computer networks using credentials provided by corrupted personnel, with sophisticated methods that suggest professional intelligence training rather than simple criminal opportunism. Patterson admits to maintaining unauthorized access to classified systems for 18 months, Rivera reports to Hayes, while reviewing transcripts that document institutional vulnerability at unprecedented levels. His activities included creating backdoor access points, installing monitoring software, and establishing automated data transfer protocols that operated continuously without detection. The technical sophistication suggests foreign intelligence coordination rather than domestic criminal activity, requiring expansion of the investigation to include counterintelligence agencies and international cooperation agreements. Rivera coordinates with FBI counterterrorism specialists, while Defense Intelligence Agency analysts assess the strategic implications of compromised military capabilities. Brennan's interrogation reveals financial incentives that began as simple document sales, but evolved into comprehensive intelligence operations, targeting specific military capabilities. His confession documents recruitment procedures that exploited personal financial difficulties and career frustrations to identify personnel vulnerable to corruption approaches. Brennan was initially approached through seemingly legitimate consulting opportunities. Rivera briefs Pentagon officials through secure communication channels. The recruitment process included gradual exposure to increasingly sensitive requests, with financial compensation escalating to levels that made withdrawal psychologically difficult. Classic intelligence recruitment methodology. Morrison's cooperation provides insight into communication protocols that enabled real-time intelligence transfer without detection by routine security monitoring. Her technical expertise was exploited to establish encrypted communication channels that bypassed standard military cybersecurity measures while maintaining plausible deniability for routine operational communications. Morrison's position gave her access to communication protocols that she modified to include hidden data transmission capabilities, Santos reports while working with federal cybersecurity specialists. The modifications were sophisticated enough to avoid detection by automated monitoring systems while enabling continuous intelligence flow to external contacts. The investigation expands beyond Fort Shadowmere as federal teams coordinate with international law enforcement agencies to track the distribution of stolen military protocols and identify foreign clients who purchased American tactical innovations. The scope suggests implications that could affect international military cooperation agreements and defense export policies. Rivera coordinates with State Department officials while preparing damage assessment reports that will determine which international military cooperation agreements require renegotiation and which allied nations may have unknowingly received compromised tactical protocols through routine information sharing arrangements. The distribution network included legitimate defense contractors who unknowingly purchased compromised protocols through seemingly normal procurement processes. Rivera explains to Pentagon officials during secure video conferences. Meridian Tactical Solutions used authentic documentation and proper legal procedures to market stolen American innovations as their own proprietary developments. Hayes coordinates with congressional oversight committees that will require detailed briefings about institutional vulnerabilities and recommended security improvements. The scope of compromise requires legislative review of military training protocols and potential revision of laws governing access to classified tactical methodologies. Commander, congressional leadership is requesting comprehensive briefings about systemic security failures and recommended institutional reforms, Hayes informs Rivera, while coordinating with Department of Defense legal counsel. The briefings will need to address both immediate security concerns and long-term policy changes required to prevent similar compromises. Rodriguez assists federal investigators who are conducting comprehensive security reviews of personnel with access to classified training protocols across multiple military installations. His experience at Fort Shadowmere provides insight into routine activities that may conceal criminal behavior in other facilities with similar vulnerabilities. Sergeant Rodriguez, your observations about routine activities that seem normal but contain subtle inconsistencies will be valuable in training security personnel at other facilities, federal investigators explain while preparing him for testimony that may be required in multiple prosecutions. Your ability to recognize patterns that suggest compromise without obvious criminal indicators could prevent similar infiltrations. The investigation's success demonstrates the effectiveness of deep cover operations in identifying institutional vulnerabilities that conventional security measures failed to detect. Rivera's 3-month assignment proves that patient observation and careful evidence documentation can expose criminal networks that operate within legitimate institutional structures. As evening approaches, Fort Shadowmere transforms from active crime scene to secured facility requiring comprehensive security review and potential personnel reassignments. The arrests mark the conclusion of one investigation while beginning preparations for institutional reforms that will protect American military advantages from future compromise. Federal teams prepare evidence packages for prosecutions that will require international cooperation, while Defense Department officials assess the strategic implications of compromised military capabilities that may have reached hostile foreign governments. The scope of necessary damage control extends beyond individual prosecutions to strategic policy revision at cabinet levels. Rivera coordinates final evidence documentation while preparing for reassignment to operations that will address institutional vulnerabilities identified through her successful infiltration of Fort Shadowmere's compromised command structure. The secure conference room in the Pentagon's Classified Operations Wing fills with officials whose combined security clearances could authorize military actions affecting global stability. Rivera sits at a polished table that reflects overhead lights while facing a panel of generals, intelligence directors, and civilian oversight officials who will determine the strategic implications of her 3-month investigation. General Marcus Thornfield, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, reviews documents that contain evidence of institutional compromise extending beyond Fort Shadowmere to facilities across 3 continents. His expression reflects the weight of learning that American military superiority has been systematically undermined by personnel who swore oaths to protect the capabilities they've been selling. Commander Rivera, your investigation has exposed systematic compromise of classified tactical protocols that took decades to develop and cost billions of dollars to refine. General Thornfield's voice carries the gravity of strategic implications that extend far beyond individual prosecutions. The methodologies sold through this network represent core American military advantages that may now be in the hands of hostile foreign governments. Rivera activates a secure presentation system that displays organizational charts showing the scope of criminal networks identified through her investigation. Sir, the evidence indicates systematic penetration of advanced training facilities across 6 countries with coordination between compromised American personnel and foreign intelligence services that suggests professional operations rather than opportunistic criminal activity. Director Sarah Mitchell of the Defense Intelligence Agency reviews intercepted communications that reveal the sophistication of foreign intelligence operations targeting American military training protocols. The communication intercepts show coordination between Meridian Tactical Solutions and intelligence services from countries that have been actively seeking American tactical innovations for strategic military programs. This wasn't simple document theft. It was targeted intelligence acquisition designed to neutralize specific American capabilities. Rivera's presentation reveals financial networks that trace payments from foreign governments through multiple shell companies to corrupted American military personnel, creating money trails that document systematic espionage operations rather than individual criminal enterprises. The financial analysis shows coordination between 12 different international clients, with payment structures that indicate long-term intelligence relationships rather than simple commercial transactions. Admiral Patricia Westmont, head of Naval Special Operations Command, studies personnel files that show the recruitment patterns used to identify and corrupt military personnel with access to classified tactical protocols. Commander, your analysis suggests these recruitment operations targeted specific personality types and financial vulnerabilities rather than random opportunity. This indicates sophisticated psychological profiling that suggests foreign intelligence training. The revelation transforms understanding of institutional vulnerability from individual corruption to systematic foreign intelligence penetration of American military training facilities. Rivera coordinates with counterintelligence specialists while preparing damage assessments that will determine which tactical protocols require immediate revision to maintain American military advantages. The recruitment analysis shows targeting of personnel with specific technical expertise, financial difficulties, and career frustrations that made them vulnerable to corruption approaches. Rivera explains while displaying psychological profiles that document systematic intelligence operations. The approaches were coordinated across multiple facilities, suggesting centralized foreign intelligence coordination rather than independent criminal activities. Deputy Director James Walsh of the Central Intelligence Agency reviews communication intercepts that show coordination between corrupted American personnel and foreign intelligence handlers who provided specific guidance about target priorities and intelligence requirements. The intercepted communications reveal intelligence tasking that focuses on specific American tactical innovations that foreign governments have been unable to develop independently. This represents strategic intelligence targeting of critical American military capabilities. Rivera's evidence documentation proves that foreign intelligence services have been systematically acquiring American tactical protocols through corrupted military personnel, creating strategic vulnerabilities that require immediate defensive measures and potential revision of international military cooperation agreements. The evidence shows that compromised tactical protocols include advanced urban warfare methodologies, specialized insertion techniques, and psychological operations frameworks that represent decades of American military innovation, Rivera reports while coordinating with strategic analysis teams. Foreign acquisition of these capabilities could neutralize American tactical advantages in multiple operational environments. General Thornfield coordinates with congressional oversight officials who will require detailed briefings about institutional vulnerabilities and recommended security reforms. Commander, congressional leadership needs comprehensive assessment of systemic security failures and recommended institutional changes required to prevent similar foreign intelligence penetration of military training facilities. Rivera prepares briefing materials that document institutional vulnerabilities while recommending security improvements that will protect classified tactical protocols from future foreign intelligence acquisition attempts. Her recommendations include enhanced personnel screening, improved cybersecurity measures, and revised access protocols that will limit exposure of classified methodologies. Recommended security improvements include implementation of enhanced background investigations for personnel with access to classified tactical protocols, installation of advanced monitoring systems that can detect unauthorized data access, and establishment of compartmentalized information systems that limit individual access to comprehensive tactical methodologies. Rivera explains while presenting detailed reform proposals. Director Mitchell coordinates with international law enforcement agencies that will assist in prosecuting foreign intelligence personnel involved in systematic acquisition of American military protocols. The international cooperation requirements include extradition requests for foreign intelligence operatives, seizure of assets used to fund corruption operations, and diplomatic coordination to address government involvement in systematic espionage operations. Rivera's investigation proves that patient intelligence work can expose foreign operations that conventional security measures failed to detect, demonstrating the value of deep cover assignments in identifying institutional vulnerabilities that threaten national security interests. Admiral Westmont reviews personnel records that will require comprehensive security reviews to identify additional personnel who may have been targeted by foreign intelligence recruitment operations. Commander Rivera, your methods for identifying compromised personnel will be valuable in training security specialists to recognize similar foreign intelligence operations at other facilities with comparable vulnerabilities. The success of Rivera's investigation establishes new protocols for conducting institutional security reviews while demonstrating the effectiveness of specialized operators in identifying threats that conventional security measures cannot detect. Her methods will be incorporated into training programs that prepare personnel to recognize and counter foreign intelligence operations targeting American military capabilities. General Thornfield coordinates with Defense Department officials who will implement institutional reforms based on Rivera's investigation findings. Commander, your investigation has provided crucial intelligence about foreign operations targeting American military advantages. The institutional reforms you've recommended will be implemented across all facilities with similar vulnerabilities to prevent future compromise of classified tactical protocols. Rivera's transformation from apparent recruit to proven counterintelligence operator demonstrates the value of deep cover operations in protecting American military capabilities from systematic foreign intelligence acquisition. Her success establishes precedents for future operations while providing evidence that will support prosecutions extending across international boundaries. The investigation's conclusion marks the beginning of institutional reforms that will protect American tactical innovations from future foreign intelligence operations, while establishing new security protocols that will prevent similar systematic compromise of classified military capabilities. 6 months after the arrests at Fort Shadowmere, Commander Rivera stands before a joint session of Congress in a hearing room designed to contain the most sensitive discussions of national security policy. The assembled representatives and senators have been briefed on classified materials that require them to understand institutional vulnerabilities most Americans will never know existed. Chairman Robert Sterling of the Senate Armed Services Committee reviews documentation that proves systematic foreign intelligence penetration of American military training facilities, his expression reflecting the gravity of learning that decades of tactical innovation have been compromised through corrupted personnel who sold classified protocols to hostile governments. Commander Rivera, your investigation has resulted in 43 arrests across 17 military installations, with prosecutions that include charges of espionage, conspiracy, and systematic betrayal of classified tactical methodologies. Chairman Sterling's voice carries the weight of strategic implications that extend to fundamental questions about military training security. The evidence you've compiled proves that foreign intelligence services have been systematically acquiring American tactical innovations through corrupted military personnel. Rivera coordinates her testimony with classified briefing materials that document the scope of institutional compromise while protecting operational methods that remain classified above congressional clearance levels. Mr. Chairman, the investigation revealed systematic foreign intelligence operations targeting specific American military capabilities that foreign governments have been unable to develop independently. The operations included recruitment of military personnel with access to classified tactical protocols, establishment of systematic intelligence transfer mechanisms, and coordination with private contractors who marketed stolen American innovations as proprietary developments. Representative Maria Gonzalez of the House Intelligence Committee reviews financial records that trace millions of dollars in payments from foreign governments through shell companies to corrupted American military personnel. Commander, the financial evidence indicates this wasn't opportunistic criminal activity. It was systematic espionage designed to neutralize American tactical advantages through targeted acquisition of specific military capabilities. Can you explain the strategic implications of these compromises? Rivera activates a secure presentation system that displays damage assessments while protecting classified technical details that could further compromise American military capabilities. Ma'am, the compromised tactical protocols include advanced urban warfare methodologies that provide significant advantages in modern conflict environments, specialized insertion techniques that enable operations in heavily defended areas, and psychological operations frameworks that influence enemy decision-making processes. Foreign acquisition of these capabilities could neutralize American tactical superiority in multiple operational scenarios. Senator David Chen of the Armed Services Committee coordinates with Defense Intelligence Agency officials who have been tracking the international distribution of stolen American tactical protocols through private military contractors with clients in hostile nations. Commander, intelligence reports indicate that tactical methodologies developed by American military personnel have been implemented by foreign military forces in recent conflict operations. Can you assess the strategic impact of this capability transfer? Rivera reviews intelligence reports that document foreign military forces employing American tactical innovations in operations that directly oppose American strategic interests. Senator, intelligence analysis confirms that tactical protocols stolen from American military facilities have been implemented by foreign forces in 3 separate conflict zones over the past 8 months. The implementations demonstrate sophisticated understanding of American tactical methodologies that could only have been acquired through systematic intelligence operations rather than independent development. Chairman Sterling coordinates with Justice Department officials who are preparing international prosecutions that require diplomatic coordination with allied governments whose military personnel may have unknowingly received compromised tactical protocols through routine information sharing agreements. Commander, the international implications of this investigation require coordination with allied nations who may have implemented tactical protocols that were originally stolen from American facilities. How do we address these diplomatic complications? Rivera explains the complexity of distinguishing between legitimate tactical cooperation and compromised intelligence transfer while protecting American capabilities that remain classified. Mr. Chairman, the investigation identified systematic penetration of international military cooperation agreements through insertion of compromised tactical protocols into legitimate information sharing processes. This requires comprehensive review of existing agreements to identify which shared protocols may have been compromised while maintaining essential international military cooperation. Representative Sarah Williams of the House Armed Services Committee reviews personnel security reforms that have been implemented based on Rivera's investigation findings. Commander, your recommendations have resulted in enhanced security protocols across all facilities with access to classified tactical methodologies. Can you explain how these reforms will prevent similar foreign intelligence operations? Rivera details institutional changes that address systematic vulnerabilities identified through her investigation while maintaining operational effectiveness of American military training programs. Ma'am, the security reforms include enhanced personnel screening that identifies psychological vulnerabilities that foreign intelligence services exploit during recruitment operations, implementation of compartmentalized information systems that limit individual access to comprehensive tactical methodologies, and establishment of continuous monitoring protocols that detect unauthorized access to classified systems. Senator Michael Rodriguez coordinates with FBI counterintelligence officials who are conducting systematic reviews of military personnel with access to classified tactical protocols to identify additional individuals who may have been targeted by foreign intelligence recruitment operations. Commander, the personnel security reviews you've recommended are identifying additional cases of possible foreign intelligence penetration. How extensive is this institutional compromise? Rivera coordinates with counterintelligence specialists while protecting operational details that could compromise ongoing investigations. Senator, preliminary reviews suggest systematic foreign intelligence targeting of American military training facilities over a period extending beyond the timeframe of the Fort Shadowmere investigation. The targeting appears to be coordinated across multiple foreign intelligence services with specific focus on acquiring tactical capabilities that provide American forces with operational advantages. Chairman Sterling reviews Defense Department budget requests that include funding for security improvements based on Rivera's investigation findings. Commander, implementation of your recommended security reforms requires significant investment in personnel screening, cyber security infrastructure, and monitoring systems. Can you justify these expenditures in terms of protecting classified tactical capabilities? Rivera explains the strategic value of protecting American tactical innovations from foreign intelligence acquisition while demonstrating the cost-effectiveness of enhanced security measures compared to the strategic losses resulting from compromised military capabilities. Mr. Chairman, the tactical protocols compromised through this investigation represent decades of American military innovation that cost billions of dollars to develop and provide crucial advantages in modern conflict environments. The investment in enhanced security measures is minimal compared to the strategic value of protecting these capabilities from continued foreign intelligence acquisition. The congressional testimony establishes legal framework for implementing institutional security reforms while providing public accountability for protecting American military capabilities from systematic foreign intelligence penetration. Rivera's investigation proves that specialized counterintelligence operations can identify and neutralize threats that conventional security measures cannot detect. Representative Gonzalez coordinates with Defense Department officials who are implementing comprehensive security reviews of international military cooperation agreements to identify and address systematic vulnerabilities that foreign intelligence services have exploited. Commander Rivera, your investigation has demonstrated that protecting American military advantages requires constant vigilance against sophisticated foreign intelligence operations. The institutional reforms you've recommended will be implemented to ensure that American tactical innovations remain protected from systematic foreign acquisition. The congressional hearing concludes with authorization for continued counterintelligence operations and implementation of enhanced security protocols that will protect American military capabilities from future foreign intelligence penetration while maintaining essential international cooperation agreements. 2 years after the Fort Shadowmere investigation, Rivera walks through the corridors of the newly established Counterintelligence Training Center at Quantico, Virginia, where her methods have been incorporated into curricula that prepare the next generation of intelligence professionals to identify and counter foreign operations targeting American military capabilities. The facility represents institutional transformation driven by lessons learned from systematic foreign intelligence penetration of military training programs. Advanced simulation environments recreate scenarios where foreign intelligence operatives attempt to recruit military personnel, providing realistic training that prepares counterintelligence specialists to recognize and neutralize threats that conventional security measures cannot detect. Rodriguez, now promoted to staff sergeant and assigned as senior instructor at the training center, coordinates with Rivera while preparing exercises that challenge students to identify subtle indicators of foreign intelligence operations among routine military activities. His experience at Fort Shadowmere provides practical insight into recognizing patterns that suggest institutional compromise without obvious criminal behavior. Commander, the simulation results show significant improvement in threat recognition capabilities among personnel who complete the enhanced training program. Rodriguez reports while reviewing assessment data that documents the effectiveness of institutionalized counterintelligence training. Students are identifying potential foreign intelligence recruitment approaches with 87% accuracy compared to 31% baseline before program implementation. Rivera reviews training assessments while coordinating with Defense Intelligence Agency officials who are expanding the program to international partners whose military forces require protection from similar foreign intelligence operations. Sergeant, the international cooperation requests indicate global recognition that protecting military tactical innovations requires specialized counterintelligence capabilities that extend beyond traditional security measures. Santos, promoted to Sergeant First Class and assigned as cybersecurity specialist at the training center, coordinates with federal agencies while developing advanced monitoring systems that detect unauthorized access to classified tactical protocols through sophisticated technical methods that foreign intelligence services employ to penetrate military computer networks. Ma'am, the cybersecurity monitoring systems we've implemented are identifying attempted foreign intelligence penetration of military networks at 17 different facilities over the past 6 months. Santos reports while analyzing intrusion attempts that demonstrate continued foreign intelligence interest in acquiring American tactical capabilities. The attempts show increasing sophistication that suggests professional intelligence operations rather than random criminal hacking. The training center represents institutional commitment to protecting American military advantages through specialized education that prepares personnel to recognize and counter threats that evolve continuously as foreign intelligence services adapt their methods to overcome improved security measures. Rivera coordinates with congressional oversight officials who are reviewing the effectiveness of security reforms implemented following her investigation while ensuring that enhanced protection measures don't compromise operational effectiveness of American military training programs. Congressional assessment indicates 93% reduction in unauthorized access to classified tactical protocols across facilities that have implemented enhanced security measures. Rivera briefs Pentagon officials while demonstrating the cost-effectiveness of investing in specialized counterintelligence capabilities. The security improvements have prevented estimated strategic losses exceeding $12 billion in compromised military capabilities while maintaining full operational effectiveness of training programs. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, now promoted to colonel and assigned as director of the training center, coordinates with international law enforcement agencies while tracking prosecutions that have resulted in 47 convictions across 12 countries, with sentences that demonstrate global commitment to protecting military tactical innovations from systematic foreign intelligence acquisition. Commander Rivera, the international prosecutions have resulted in dismantling 3 separate foreign intelligence networks that were systematically targeting American military training facilities, Colonel Hayes reports, while coordinating with diplomatic officials who are addressing government-level involvement in systematic espionage operations. The prosecutions have created deterrent effects that are reducing foreign intelligence targeting of American military capabilities. The success of institutional reforms proves that systematic threats require systematic responses that address root vulnerabilities rather than individual incidents. Rivera's investigation established precedents for protecting American military advantages through specialized operations that identify and neutralize foreign intelligence threats before they compromise critical capabilities. Students at the training center include military personnel from allied nations whose forces require protection from similar foreign intelligence operations, creating international cooperation frameworks that strengthen global security while protecting shared tactical innovations from systematic foreign acquisition. The international training program includes personnel from 23 allied nations whose military forces have implemented security protocols based on lessons learned from the Fort Shadowmere investigation. Rivera explains while coordinating with State Department officials who are expanding international cooperation agreements. The shared training creates mutual protection frameworks that prevent foreign intelligence services from exploiting differences in security protocols among allied military forces. Rivera's office in the training center displays commendations that recognize her contribution to protecting American military capabilities, but her focus remains on preparing future counterintelligence professionals to identify and counter evolving threats that foreign intelligence services continue developing to penetrate American military training programs. The threat environment continues evolving as foreign intelligence services adapt their methods to overcome improved security measures. Rivera briefs advanced students while preparing them for operational assignments that will protect American military capabilities from systematic foreign acquisition. Effective counterintelligence requires continuous adaptation to counter threats that become more sophisticated as adversaries learn from failed operations. Rodriguez coordinates with federal agencies while tracking continued foreign intelligence attempts to acquire American tactical protocols through methods that exploit technological vulnerabilities rather than corrupted personnel, demonstrating that protecting military capabilities requires comprehensive security approaches rather than single-point solutions. Foreign intelligence services are shifting toward technical penetration methods that exploit cybersecurity vulnerabilities rather than human recruitment operations, Rodriguez reports, while developing training scenarios that address evolving threat methodologies. The shift requires enhanced technical training for counterintelligence personnel who must counter threats that combine traditional espionage methods with advanced cybersecurity techniques. Santos develops advanced monitoring systems that protect classified tactical protocols while enabling legitimate research and development activities that maintain American military technological advantages through continued innovation rather than simply protecting existing capabilities. The monitoring systems we've implemented enable continued tactical innovation while protecting classified methodologies from foreign intelligence acquisition, Santos explains while demonstrating technologies that balance security requirements with operational effectiveness. The systems provide real-time threat detection while supporting legitimate research activities that maintain American military technological superiority. Rivera's transformation from undercover recruit to recognized counterintelligence expert demonstrates that protecting American military capabilities requires individuals willing to accept personal risk for institutional security while developing systematic approaches that address root vulnerabilities rather than superficial symptoms. As evening approaches at Quantico, Rivera reviews reports from ongoing operations that apply lessons learned from her investigation to identify and counter foreign intelligence threats, targeting American military capabilities at facilities around the world. Her methods continue protecting tactical innovations that provide American forces with operational advantages while ensuring that military training programs maintain effectiveness despite enhanced security requirements. The legacy of Fort Shadowmere extends beyond individual prosecutions to institutional transformation that protects American military superiority through specialized counterintelligence capabilities developed by professionals who understand that freedom requires constant vigilance against those who would undermine it through systematic betrayal of sworn oaths and sacred trust. Outside her office window, the lights of Washington, D.C. reflect American democracy protected by military forces whose tactical advantages remain secure because someone was willing to spend 3 months being underestimated, dismissed, and harassed while building cases that preserved capabilities essential to national security and international stability. The mission continues with new challenges requiring the same dedication to truth, justice, and protecting those who serve. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.